The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are those of the individual co-host and do not reflect the official policy or position of the Firearms Radio Network and/or their employers. Viewer discretion is advised. This is especially true on our live shows.
Broadcast for shooters, hunters, and gun enthusiasts. This is the Firearms Radio Network. The bandwidth for this episode of This Week in Guns is sponsored by Patriot Patch Company. PatriotPatch.co.
Welcome to This Week in Guns. This show is brought to you by the Firearms Radio Network and Patriot Patch Company.
And this show offers commentary on the latest firearms industry news, information, and buzz. I'm your host, Sean Heron, and as always, it is my pleasure to introduce our panelists tonight. First up, we've got the co-host of the Firearms Insider Gun and Gear Review podcast and owner-lead instructor at Contextual Defense and Consulting, Zane Mangillo. Dang it, I forgot to ask before the show. Now I'm like, I've confused myself. But anyway, welcome to the show.
What's up, man?
Glad to have you here. Next up, we've got concealed carry instructor from Albuquerque. Practical Defense Training is where he plies his craft. Also SMI on occasion. He's also the co-host of the After Action Project on the Firearms Radio Network, Andy Montoya. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, man. I'm glad to be here.
Glad to have you both. Let's get right into it. But before we do, Patriot Patch Company is the place that I want you guys to go visit. This last month was the Winter Warfare patch for the Patch of the Month Club. So if you can see the video, I'm holding it up right now. If not, just imagine an igloo on a tank with some pretty cool lettering for Winter Warfare. And that's that. PatriotPatch.co is the place to do that. Top stories, guys. Kind of a sad one to start the night off. Rest in peace, Ron Bellin. I don't know if you guys know who Ron Bellin is, but he was a Navy SEAL Master Chief. He was in the SEALs for 25 years, led some of the most elite special operations squads on the planet for a very, very, very long time. After that, he did a TV show on the Pursuit channel called Reaper Outdoors. And I know he's heavily, heavily involved with the Special Operations Wounded Warriors, SOWW. Passed away unexpectedly. And I know a lot of people on my Facebook were super upset about it. I've met him a couple times. Super nice guy. Also spoke the truth and told things like it was. So I just want to give my best to his family and the people who knew him, and just say rest in peace, man.
Yeah, definitely, for sure.
All right, so that's the depressing news. Just wanted to get that out there. Let's get into the rest of the depressing news. Sutherland Springs prompts Texas to introduce church carry bill. So this is actually a good thing. You may remember a man's name, Stephen Williford of Sutherland Springs. He's the guy who used an AR-15 to stop a church shooter. I've got a couple things that I want to remember. Just remind me in a second that about the killer's name. But basically, they've introduced this to give the churches the ability to define their own protocols and policies and things like that. Instead of just blanket, banning something across the board, this was introduced basically so that churches could do their own thing and make their own decisions, which is exactly what I think we should do as private property owners, businesses, things like that. We should be able to make our own choices as to what we want to do. Very, very good thing, in my opinion. Zane, what do you think?
So the idea that a lot of states actually prevent you from carrying in religious institutions is very strange to me. Like, I do understand why they do it in some cases, but when it comes to churches, synagogues, whatever, like, those are all, like you said, extremely private, and that should be up to that institution. And while the phrase separation of church and state is not used anywhere in the Constitution or the Declaration of Independence, it is a concept that we have come to kind of universally in this country adhere to. And so why is the government telling a religious institution, oh, by the way, your people can't carry a gun in here, no matter what you think? So I think it's a good thing. I hope other states will follow suit. My state does not have a prohibition on carry in churches, which is great. I also don't really go to church because I'm kind of a heathen. But so yeah, man, I think it's a good thing, and I hope this passes.
Yeah, same. Andy, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree. First of all, it surprises me that Texas doesn't have, or that has this law that you can't carry in a church right now. That just kind of surprised me. Texas is usually one of the states that everybody goes to. Let's be like Texas. Let's be like Texas. and you see a law like this, kind of surprises you. And I agree exactly the same thing as what he said is, why can we not already carry in our own churches? I mean, when you look at these weird churches that they have rattlesnakes that they play with and get bit like that, I mean, I kind of think I want a gun in there too. So that's my thought on it.
Well, and the other thing is they're not exempting them from like the 30-06, 30-07 signs. The church can still post a sign saying, no, you can't carry in here.
Yep.
So I don't even understand why this would have any pushback against it. I could understand if they were saying, no, you have to let people carry. Okay, I would understand why people could be upset. But I mean, considering that they're just like, it's up to the church staff, I think this should pass. I don't see why it wouldn't, especially in Texas.
Yeah, agreed. And finally, on this bill, the proposed law reduces penalties for licensed citizens who unknowingly carry guns in a prohibited area, while it increases the penalty from a misdemeanor to a felony for armed individuals who refuse to leave prohibited areas. And there you go, more property rights and more that the church gets to do its own thing, but it also kind of protects them in the situation where someone is there and they don't want them there. As far as the killer's name that I asked you guys to remind me about, I saw his name in this article and I didn't even recognize it. I had to read back to figure out who they were even talking about in the article. And I thought that was actually really good because so often these people are just talked about ad nauseum on the news, on websites, everywhere possible. And you see their name just constantly. I didn't even recognize this dude's name. And I don't know if that's just because of my conscious decision not to talk about it, not to look at it, and to forget about these pieces of human trash, or if just maybe the media has gotten a little bit better about that. I don't know. Do you guys have an opinion on that?
Yeah, for me, if you notice, this is the one story that all the anti-gunners never want to talk about.
Oh, yeah.
If you ever watch like Crowder and those guys, he brings it out and says, hey, what about Sutherland Springs? And they're like, what? Who's that? Where's that at? When did that happen? So for me, I mean, I think it's pretty common to not know that. As far as Stephen Williford, I mean, doesn't he look like the gold miner from Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer?
Yes. I like that.
I agree. Like, I didn't recognize the name when I read through it earlier, and I still couldn't tell you, not that I would say it on the air, but I still couldn't tell you the dude's name. But I make it a point to not pay attention to that because it's just like it's either been brought up on this show or one of the other shows, like when the TV stations agreed to stop showing streakers at baseball games, people stopped streaking at baseball games. And I think that they could take a good hard lesson about that and apply it here. So I wish that everyone would just quit caring about these people.
Yep, agreed. Constitutional carry comes to South Dakota. This basically was signed into law by their new Republican governor, Kristi Noem. This is SB 47, and basically the legislation permits residents to legally carry a firearm concealed on their person so long as they are allowed to possess one. So constitutional carry for the frickin' win is what I have to say. And this bill passed in the state Senate by 23-11 vote and the state House by a vote of 47-23. So not only did it pass, but it passed decisively and with profound applause. So I think that this is a great thing. I think constitutional carry is a good thing. I'm pretty stoked about this. Andy Montoya, what do you think?
I think anytime constitutional carry gets brought up and it gets approved is a good thing. Even as a concealed carry instructor here in New Mexico, I still think it's a great thing and I'd vote for it. The only issue that I have with concealed carry is sometimes we as gun owners forget the little details of it. Arizona, for example, they're constitutional carry, but if you have a concealed carry permit, you can go into other places that you usually cannot if you have constitutional carry. The other issue is, what if you go to New Mexico and you want to come visit Andy? If you don't have a concealed carry permit, now you're stuck without being able to conceal carry. So I think constitutional carry is great, but it needs to be a bigger door to future to where we can actually do it at all states.
Zane?
I agree. As also a concealed carry instructor, I think that constitutional carry promotes better training because typically when a state has a training requirement, every yahoo and their sister gets whatever minimum requirement they have to and assume they're good because, well, the state said this is good enough. I think when you remove all that and just be like, hey, anybody can carry a gun, you're going to get, I think, more people that are going to take better training. Maybe not across the board. And the other thing is, we shouldn't have to pass a law that says constitutional carry. Like, it's a constitutional right. Why these states have to continually pass laws that literally have the highest law of the land in the name is just crazy to me. But such is life.
Yeah. I was talking to Matt DeVito on this show, actually, from Downrange Firearms Training, and he was in a situation where they had passed constitutional carry in a state that he lived in, and also a concealed carry instructor. And I asked him point blank, did that affect your business? Did it empty out your classes? Did you go hungry? Did your kids starve? Were you broken in the street? And he said, no, there was not really a visible impact. So, you know, what I take away from that is that people want to be trained with firearms. They want to be more comfortable with firearms. And that doesn't really matter how we can carry. The people who are getting trained are going to get trained. The people who are going to break the law are already breaking the law, and they're going to continue to break the law regardless of what laws are passed. So I think for all of us that are concealed carry instructors, constitutional carry is not a scary thing. We've seen in multiple places, and I've talked to multiple people that say it didn't affect their business at all. And I think that's a good thing. Also says a lot about the caliber of people that carry firearms.
Well, and the other thing is that, so in Florida, anybody and their sister can be, if you are an NRA instructor of any discipline, you can teach a concealed weapons course. Mm-hmm. And it's not a state mandated course. You write your own course. So if you're like a metallic cartridge reloader instructor through the NRA, you can literally sort of, so my thing is, like, if they would have passed us here, I wouldn't have to be competitive with the concealed carry market. These guys doing 30-minute classes and firing one shot. I can just go ahead and teach what I want to teach, and I don't have to compete with all these people that are just looking for the bottom dollar. And that's what I'd rather do. I'd rather have an 8-hour class that I can, but that's just not competitive.
Yeah.
So, you know,
never getting a race to the bottom.
Yep.
Next up, we've got the Shush Act is reintroduced by the Senate. This comes to us, Senator Mike Lee, Republican from Utah, along with Senators Ted Cruz, Republican Texas, John Cornyn, Republican Texas, Rand Paul, Republican Kentucky, James Risch, Republican Idaho, and Mike Crapo, Republican Idaho. I'm only saying their names. I realize how freaking boring what I just said is, but I'm saying their names because these are guys that are trying to push for this. But they reintroduced a bill that would eliminate the federal regulation of firearms, sound suppressors, Shush Act, Silencers Helping Us Save Hearing Act. So I guess this is maybe version 2 or whatever. This has been pushed through before. The second time it was introduced by Senator Lee. It was previously introduced in 2017, but never made it out of committee. This was now formally introduced on January 24th, 2019, read twice, referred to the Committee on Finance for further action. This is good. Let me read you just a couple things real quick. The bill already has critics. David Chipman, senior policy advisor for Giffords Law Center to Prevent Gun Violence and a retired ATF special agent, called the bill reckless, said it was going to make the job of a police officer more dangerous. I quote, "The only people that benefit from this bill are gun lobbyists and criminals who want easier access to deadly weapons. That's why this irresponsible legislation couldn't get passed when Republicans had complete control of Congress. Instead of making it easier for firearms that could be used in ambushes and other attacks to enter our streets, Congress should focus on making the job of police officers who are trained to serve and protect our communities and families safer." Chris Brown, not of Rihanna fame, but president of the Brady Campaign to Prevent Gun Violence, also criticized the bill and said, "With public opinion and the majority of new members of Congress clearly on the side of gun safety, it's a shame that Senator Lee is continuing to push his silencer bill on behalf of the gun industry." Not us, who would give our left arm for this to pass, but they're doing it for the gun industry. Zane, what are your thoughts?
Well, my thoughts are, first of all, this is not going to go anywhere. It's going to do the exact same thing it did last time and the time before. So if you're waiting on this to purchase your silencer or your suppressor, whichever you want to call it, legally it's a silencer, you are just hurting the industry, like what happened when the Hearing Protection Act originally came up. It's not going to pass. As to all these idiots talking about how terrible it is, well, if you go back and look at when silencers were originally kind of heavily regulated, it had mostly to do with poaching purposes during the Great Recession.
Yeah,
or Great Depression. So And silencers are not deadly weapons. They require a deadly weapon in order for you to even use it. So I don't know. The whole thing, I think, is kind of moot because it's not going to pass.
I agree. I hope it makes it out of committee and makes it a little bit further. I don't think it will, and honestly, forget national reciprocity. As far as I'm concerned, like this would be the absolute ideal. But Zane, you said a really good thing, and it's don't crush the suppressor industry waiting to buy suppressors. Yeah, it sucks. Yeah, it's an extra $200 right now for the tax stamp, but if this doesn't pass, you'll be ahead of the curve. And if it does pass, you will have kept those businesses afloat while politicians played their stupid games. Andy Montoya, thoughts?
Yeah, same thing. I agree. I'm actually one of those guys that's been holding off getting a suppressor. It's not so much the $200. It's more of the wait time. Because us as gun guys, we want to go get it and we want to go play with it. And unfortunately, with this, the way it's written now, we can't. And then we get stuck in jail for a little bit to get it out. And then you have to wait. You have to wait some more. And you have to wait some more. So that's why I don't have one. But yeah, I'll believe it when I see it. I will say this, though. If another mass shooting happens, and I'm not a conspiracy theory guy, if another mass shooting happens, when this goes forward, I'm going to go get some foil and start building me a hat.
Zane's got you covered. If you're looking at the camera right now, there it is. Foil hat. It is ready to rock and roll.
Awesome.
Yeah, no, I agree. It is interesting. I will say that I got interesting news great news yesterday. I have 5 suppressors that are in ATF jail, I guess. But anyway, they just got Form 3 to my SOT, who also happens to be my girlfriend. So I also work for her company. So I will be able to have access and conjugal visits with my suppressors starting maybe tomorrow.
Hashtag humble brag.
Hashtag humble brag. The Solo 300, a bolt action 300 blackout pistol. It is interesting. I don't know. It's just like a side charging, easy for you to say. Bolt action, straight pull pistol and a caliber of 300 blackout. It looks like Han Solo's blaster. It's got a red dot on top. It's got a short barrel, no handguard. And actually does look like a handgun, but basically it's kind of made for hunting. And I don't know. I thought it was interesting, and I wanted to talk about it just because we don't talk about guns a whole lot on this show, and just not a whole lot of interesting news lately. But I don't know. This one I like because Star Wars, but I don't like because I don't like anything else about it. Andy?
Yeah, you kind of touched on exactly what I was going to say. Star Wars fans are going to eat this stupid thing up. I see in the comments, because I read the comments on this news thread, and people were like, why would you want to do this? This is stupid. And you know what? For me personally, yeah, it's pretty stupid. It's ugly as sin. But you know what? If you want one, go buy one. I don't really care.
Yeah. Zane?
I have no interest in this. It's dumb. But, it's your right to buy dumb things. So you do you, boo-boo.
It is. All the hate actually makes me want one even more, actually.
Says the guy who has like 8 high points.
I literally have 2 on my desk right here.
What a joke.
It's my protection. I keep that thing on me. Next up, new North Carolina sex offender shot twice after breaking into home. And, it's kind of the same the story old as time, however you want to say it. But Carolina guy comes in the back door, confronted by the homeowner. Homeowner ends up shooting him twice. Bad guy ends up driving himself to a hospital. No update on the person's condition. But, it's always kind of an interesting thing after that trigger gets pulled. Andy, Albuquerque, man, not the safest place in the universe, and not the worst place either. But I think home invasions are something that kind of goes on around there. What are your thoughts here?
Yeah, it happens a lot, sadly. And it happens everywhere, but just seems like it's more prevalent in my beautiful city that I have. Hey, it is what it is. The whole saying goes, 2 to the chest, the face gets the rest. And I guess they avoided the chest on this one. So you know what? You do what you got to do sometimes. Kudos to the person to protect their family.
Yep, totally agree. Zane?
Yep. I mean, just like Andy said, it chalk one up for the good guys. I've been told that people don't use guns for self-defense. That's a myth. And well, they're wrong.
Yeah, no, they're dead wrong. I guess, pun intended. I don't know. But I will say that for this homeowner now, he's got to deal with like the repercussions of this, right? Like, who knows? I mean, North Carolina, pretty good place. This is Elizabeth City in North Carolina. Pretty good gun place. But you just never know what's going to happen, that your story is going to match the ballistic evidence, that this guy's not going to sue you, stuff like that, which just brings me to second call defense. It's self-defense insurance specifically for this kind of thing. You know, if this guy has to go get questioned by police and he says the wrong thing, and a prosecutor, you know, looks at that and says, hey, you know, there's something here, let's follow up with it. That sucks for the homeowner. Like we've heard all these civil cases where the person's like, oh, I just needed a glass of water, so I walked in and he shot me. I'm suing for, you know, all the damages that are going to happen. Second call defense takes care of all that, pays damages, pays it all up front. You're never out of pocket. You can find more firearmsradio.tv/SCD and get a free month just for signing up. Next story, Pink's husband. I love how it's Pink's husband, Carey Hart, not motocross superstar Carey Hart, who happens to be Pink's husband, trolls the left with his parenting skills. This comes to us from westernjournal.com. And I thought it was pretty cool. First off, I grew up with Carey Hart. The X Games, everything that he did was pretty amazing.
First backflip on a motorcycle.
Yes. Yep. I saw that live watching the X Games the first time.
So did I. Although I was in high school, so, you know, screw you, Sean.
I was probably in my 20s. I only had 4 kids by that point. So, but he posted on Twitter and said, haven't poked the parent police bear. I'm glad I've got a windscreen on this, but Will's his daughter Willis or Willow, and I shooting the 22 rifle. She's getting pretty good. Can hit a 12-inch pie plate from 30 yards. Started her shooting at 3 years old. For the record, none of us hunt. We just enjoy shooting for sport. I'm raising the kids with knowledge of firearms, how to handle them, shoot them, store them, and avoid them in uneducated hands, which I think is awesome. At the very bottom, he even mentions, towards the bottom of the article, people are slamming him for teaching his daughter to do all these crazy things out, and said, I hope your kids don't mimic you. He responded back, I hope they do mimic me. I hope they spend quality time with their kids, teach them life skills and education. I'm not sure where you live, but in America, firearms are legal and not going away. So I choose to embrace it. Take the taboo out, educate them so they don't become a statistic. Many forms of shooting are an Olympic, in all caps, sport. Man, I knew that I thought Carey Hart was awesome, but now I think that he's even way cooler because that's exactly kind of how I feel about things. Andy, what do you think?
Totally. Yeah, I love it when we can. So there's this 2 sides of it, right? First of all, I don't really care what celebrities think most of the time, but it's also nice to have some of these guys that go to the left and say, kiss my aspirin. You know, I'm going to teach my kid. I'm going to teach them morals. I'm going to teach them how to shoot and protect themselves. And I'm going to do all of this stuff that you guys think is so bad. And I don't really care what you think.
Yeah. Very awesome. Zane?
I was actually going to say the exact same thing. I normally do not care what a celebrity thinks, whether it be pro or anti. But in this case, I grew up kind of watching, you know, Carey Hart do his thing, and I like the guy. I think he's an awesome dude. So this just makes me like him even more, like you said. And for the people talking about how dangerous it is, and I hope your kids don't fall, like, I'm pretty sure doing backflips on motorcycles is way more dangerous than plinking with the 22. Shut up. You know,
I agree, man. I don't know. It just, people are weird, but glad to see that he's standing up for, you know, what he believes in. You know, and I'm clearly glad that it coincides with what I believe in. But I thought it was well presented, well said from a guy who literally has done crazier things on a dirt bike, like you said, Zane. Next story, 23 states back petition for certiorari in New Jersey may issue case. I think Kenny just put that in there to trip me up.
I think it's certiorari. I think is the word you're looking for.
Certiorari, yeah, that's the one. I'll look it up later. And, make sure. Now, if one of the lawyers like Adam Kraut, Ryan Kleckner, Josh Prince, if one of them was on here, we'd be good to go. But yeah, because I don't really know what that means. But I'll tell you what this means. There is a case, Thomas Rogers and the Association of New Jersey Rifle and Pistol Clubs. They're taking this case. They're basically trying to get it to the Supreme Court. He's got 23 states, attorney generals, and governors on their side that have wrote messages that they want this covered. And really the thing is in New York, their laws are so ridiculous and restrictive that if you own a firearm, you can't even like leave town with that firearm. So a 3-gun shooter in New York that wants to take his firearms to another county or outside the city or whatever it happens to be, can't do it. You're not allowed to do it. So you basically have to choose between your right to your Second Amendment right to own and bear arms, or your right to freely travel. Like you can't do both. And that's one of the key tenets of this amicus brief filed by Thomas Rogers and the Association of New Jersey Rifle and Pistol Club. And I kind of hope that the Supreme Court takes this case. This would be far reaching, in my opinion. Zane, what do you think?
I think May issue is a problem. And this is kind of what this is aimed at getting rid of. I think the fact you have to ask permission to carry a firearm is a violation of the Second Amendment, but the Supreme Court has ruled that it is not, I guess. So, okay, fine. But May issue flies in the face of really Heller and McDonald, because a single person, being the sheriff or whoever, can be like, nah, you don't have the right to carry a firearm outside your home.
De facto ban.
Yeah. So if we're going to go with the licensing thing, which again, I don't agree with, but okay, I get it. That's the law of the land. It needs to be across the board. If you meet the requirements, you get the license. It shouldn't be based on an individual level. So I think May issue needs to go away. And I hope that the Supreme Court takes this up. It's always a crapshoot when the Supreme Court takes a course, because it does set nationwide precedents. So if they go the opposite way in their ruling, which I don't think they will, but if they do, well, that can have consequences the other way. So watch with bated breath, I guess.
Yeah, I agree. And 2 Trump appointees definitely swing it, I believe, in our favor. And I've often said that those 2 appointees could be the greatest thing that any president has done for my interests in the Second Amendment in my lifetime and longer. Real quick, before I go to Andy, let me play this. Oh, for some reason it's not playing. I was trying to figure out how to pronounce certiorari. Andy, what do you think?
So first, this isn't the case that's already going to the Supreme Court, right? Because I know there's one in New York coming up in October.
No, I don't believe this one actually is. They're just trying to get the Supreme Court to accept this case at this point. I might have actually confused them, because you're right, Zane, this is May issue, and I was talking about travel. But both cases are definitely of interest. But yeah, I think this one actually is the May issue.
Good. You know, Ryan Kleckner has the Trigger Words podcast there on the Firearms Radio Network, and I really love that podcast. And he talks about this kind of in detail. And he said usually when the Supreme Court hears a case, it's because they're intending on more than likely changing the law.
Yeah.
So for that, you know, awesome. I hope we get more. My concern is, of all the ones that they pick, there's so many other better ones that I wish was going to the Supreme Court right now. But you know what? I guess, hey, we got to take what we can get.
Yeah, agreed. Izzy of the Gun Collective just said that according to Adam Kraut, that it's pronounced certiorari. And Zane, that's pretty much exactly what you said, right?
It's something like that.
So did you read what he wrote you?
Izzy just typed that out in the chat on YouTube.
So did he spell it out for you, or how?
Phonetically, yes. SIR-SHER-AREE. Certiorari.
Because I was like, how'd you read it and not get it, but you just read it and got it?
I was gonna say that, but I was like, I'll let it slide.
Yes. Thank goodness that Izzy speaks phonetically for me. Maj Toure and Head Down Firearms introduced the Solutionary AR-15. It's an AR-15 that's going to cost about $1,100. I like the way it looks, but more importantly, I think so. Kevin Dixie of No Other Choice Firearms Training just introduced some custom pistols. I believe that they are called The Truth, and the pistol cases are actually pretty amazing. All the foam inside of them has it's laser engraved with stories of race relations and slavery and things inside the United States. I thought it was pretty cool. Price tag's pretty high. The price tag on this one, not too bad, $1,100 for an AR that seems to be good quality. And I know Head Down does some good stuff. But I just wanted to ask you guys your thoughts. Seems like there's a lot of people that are launching their own custom firearms, and I wanted to kind of get you guys' thoughts on this gun from Maj Toure and Black Guns Matter, but also just people releasing all of their own custom firearms. And I'll start with Andy. You
okay? Have you seen, the T-shirt from Patriot Pack says "All Rifles Matter"?
Yes.
So I wear that shirt often, And I was walking into the grocery store the other day, and a young black lady looked at me, rolled her eyes, and she said, "Wow, oh my gosh," and walked off. And I kind of smiled. I thought it was funny. So before we talk about the rifle, I love the fact that he's doing Black Guns Matter. As a matter of fact, I want to get one of his t-shirts because it just really drives home this whole thing about, chill with the racial stuff. We're all gun owners. And that's what's important to me. As far as this rifle, I watched the video too, and Maj Stray said, this is a great rifle. It's affordable to everybody, and that's where I was like, $1,100 for an AR at this point in time, that's a little high. And you know what? Look, I get it. I see what the money's going to, but if you really want to make it affordable, then make it affordable.
Yeah, that's kind of what I think. For the most part, it just depends on like who's your target market for this. And Maj thinks that everyone should own an AR-15. That's kind of the key to this solutionary rifle. I really like and respect Maj, and I'm down with it. But yeah, that was the first thing I was like, okay, where's the price? Seems a little high to me. Dane, what do you think?
Well, I think Maj is doing great work. I think he's doing the stuff that everyone else is scared to do, including stuff that's quite controversial, even in our own circles. But I'm a fan of it. So the idea with all these signature rifles or signature guns in general, like, they're for those people's supporters. Someone who's never heard of Maj Toure is not buying this rifle, just like someone who's never heard of Kevin Dixie is not buying his pistol. And the same thing with everyone. Someone who's never heard of Rob Pincus isn't going to buy an Avidity Arms PD-10 if it ever actually.
I was just going to say, wait a minute, these guns actually exist.
Right. The ones I mentioned earlier actually exist. So there's that. But yeah, so like the price I kind of think is largely irrelevant, honestly, because you're buying this to support the cause. Yeah, it's like when you buy things from a Friends of NRA event or whatever, or anything. So I don't think the price, and honestly, $1,100 is right where you want to be for a quote unquote duty gun. You start getting much cheaper than that. You're starting to skip on. So, I think it's cool. I'm not gonna probably get one because I have an AR. It works, but I think it's cool.
Yeah,
Sean, I have a question for you, Sean. So with ARs so cheaply made, you can get really, really budget. You can get really, really great ones, Noveski, stuff like that. What do you think the future is for AR-15s as far as, what's left? What else is there that they can bring to SHOT Show next year and be like, hey, look at this. This is even cooler than the last 500 ARs.
Yeah, on that, I don't know. There's always people kind of surprising me and doing different things. But I think ultimately you're still going to get what you pay for. Like, we post a lot of links to PSA and their $300 AR kits, and people buy the crap out of those just because it's really, really inexpensive. But I've also heard of, some problems with those. But, if you buy one from a really high dollar manufacturer, you're usually and generally going to get a much better product. That doesn't always hold true, but pretty much to my experience, I've seen a lot of it. Now, we're talking about something that's milled out, like an Anderson. I've got 7 Andersons. I've got a bunch of arrows. I got a bunch of high dollar stuff too. But so far, the Andersons have went together. Would I put one on my battle rifle? Probably not. But for just a plinker, definitely a lot. So your question was, where do I see things going? Is I think people are just going to keep surprising us and keep doing things differently and keep improving things. For example, the Iron Horse Arms doing their thumb fired AR-15. Like, that was a new way to look at something, and I was very skeptical. But when I actually got hands on with it, it was pretty cool. I actually have one on the way, but it was just a new way to look at things. And I think that I can't really prognosticate what's going to happen. If I could, I would put out the product myself. But I think that people are just going to keep surprising us. And Franklin Armory, bless their hearts, they're doing different things. They're single action, or they're double action, not actually semi-auto. It's kind of clever, and if they can make it work, then I think it's a really good idea. It's much better than the reformation, in my opinion.
They're poking the bear.
They are. They're not just poking the bear. They're like choking it out like that dude with that mountain lion or whatever.
Yes.
All right. Let's see. Where are we? So anyway, super producer Kenny Ortega of This Week in Guns also edits and publishes Gun Funny, just does a lot of great work for the Firearms Radio Network. Said that Maj and Kevin Dixie will be on the show next week. So I'll definitely ask them about these and discuss kind of their thoughts on this as well. Anti-gun AARP faces competition from pro-gun AMAC. So for all you young whippersnappers out there, AARP is, I don't even know what it stands for. I don't really even know what it is or what you get.
National Association for Retired People.
Okay, thank you. So they basically what? They just like give you discounts on first cafeteria, like stuff like that? Or
Oh, I don't know. I'm 30 stands for. I don't know what they do.
I don't know what they do either.
Me neither.
But they basically came out and said I'm quoting actually, Congress should eliminate gaps in and strengthen enforcement of the Brady Handgun Violence Prevention Act and other federal gun laws. States should enact legislation to eliminate gaps in and strengthen enforcement of federal and state gun laws, particularly with regard to possession by juveniles, convicted domestic abusers, and those under domestic violence restraining orders. And the Association of Mature American Citizens, AMAC, said they support the Constitution of the United States of America and our Bill of Rights, including the Second Amendment. Exercising the right to keep and bear arms demands the utmost responsibility, but we believe the Second Amendment guarantees our inalienable right to keep and bear arms. Anyway, if you're friends with Aaron Krieger from We Like Shooting, just let him know that that he wants to join AMAC, not AARP, and just make sure that he's supporting the right one. So if you're out there, your parents are members of AARP, maybe show them AMAC and see if that would interest them and help them as well. I'm totally fine with that.
Yeah.
Andy, what do you think?
The one thing in the article it said is you had to dig down real deep to find that quote that you read. Mm-hmm. And so for me, and I don't want to go too far down a rabbit hole. For me, most senior citizens, they're not going to look into that. They don't really care. They just want their benefits. They want their discount at Luby's, and they don't really care what these people think. Nor does it matter what this company feels. They're not going to change laws, in my opinion, by releasing some anti-gun statement. So I don't know if it even matters. As far as the other company, great. I mean, good on them. I think it's only going to matter for us when we're old fuds and we're looking for our discount on our restaurants too. Maybe it'll matter then. But other than that, I just don't see it even. It's not going to play anything out.
Zane, did I show my age when I said first cafeteria?
A little bit.
Zane, what are your thoughts on AARP?
I think anyone that doesn't carry a 45 is not affected by this story.
Dang it.
I also don't care because, yeah.
You carry a revolver.
I am carrying a revolver today. I typically carry a Glock, though, but I got a wheel gun today.
How many rounds is in it?
Is 5. Because if I need 6, anyway.
You're doing it wrong.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's a little bit of virtue signaling on both companies.
It could be.
And if we're using that correctly.
The funny part is I got so excited to make a joke about Aaron that I totally forgot to even ask you guys your opinion. I was just I was sitting in my glory right then.
Is it bad that I was thinking about Aaron at the same time? But I was
going to make the Aaron joke if you.
Okay, good. North Carolina man holds a burglary suspect at gunpoint until police arrive. I don't know what's going on in North Carolina, but they need to get it figured out. So anyway, he keeps track of his parents' house. It was unoccupied at the time. Neighbor called, said there were suspicious people. He goes there. They walk out. He holds them at gunpoint, makes them get down on the ground. They did not have a firearm that was reported in this. And I am going to completely hold off my editorial on this. And I want to hear you guys' opinions. Both of you instructors, both of you have strong opinions on this stuff. Zane, start us off.
So I don't know North Carolina law. I know under Florida law, there could be some issues with what he did. There's some contradictory statutes, however, but this is North Carolina. So I'm not going to really speak on the legal side of things. Tactically, however, I do see some issues. One of the things I always talk about in my classes is what are you willing to die for and what are you willing to kill for? Because entering into a armed encounter could result in either of those occurring. So decisions you need to make ahead of time. In this case, an unoccupied dwelling, and he was on the phone, I think he said for like 3 minutes before they came out. He made a statement that if he would have had to put a bullet in someone, he would have been justified. And maybe not. Like I said, I don't know North Carolina law, but what I do know is when you are approaching 3 individuals or even more at the time, he had no idea. He just know that he injected himself into a situation he didn't need to be.
Bingo.
Now chalk up a win for the good guys. I mean, he went home and the bad guys went to jail. So we'll mark it as a win, but kind of like when the baseball player sets a record, but they put an asterisk by it when they find out who uses like drugs later. It's like, it's a win. However,
yeah,
because there's, and I get it, man. Someone's violating your property, your stuff, man. I get it. That makes you mad, but you cannot let your emotions take control. Because if you ask anyone you can't ask because they're no longer with us, that made a similar decision, but it turned out in their demise, they'd probably do things differently. Like we talked about on the show, the Walmart robbery, where dude was robbing a Walmart, CCW, shoots guy, and unbeknownst to him, he's got an accomplice that burns that dude down. So, man, things could have gone really, really bad here. I'm glad they didn't, but this is not something I would recommend in most cases. And everything's contextual, right? Name of my company's Contextual Defense and Consulting. I'm a big fan of context. So there's a lot to unpack here. There really is. We could really spend the whole show on this, but that's kind of my high points.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Andy, anything to add to this one?
Pretty much he hit the nail on the head. If you watch the video, I mean, I know we're on a podcast. If you watch the video, the guy's standing in the middle of the yard. 3 dudes run out of the house. He's damn lucky that those dudes were not armed and they submitted. So I agree. He had some cars there he could have used. I mean, we could armchair quarterback this thing, like Zane said, to the death. But I'm glad he won. And let's hope he doesn't have to go through that again, because next time it might not be so lucky.
Yeah. And the other thing is, man, you could tell he didn't really have much training when it comes to dealing with unknowns or subjects or suspects, whatever you want to call them, because he got really close, like within 3 feet of them at one point, and no one's at a position of disadvantage. He's not, cross your ankles, turn your palms, all the stuff that they teach cops and whatnot to place people. So, man, if it's not worth dying for it, man, just let it go. Let it go.
Yeah. One of the things we say in our class: if you're not willing to die for it, don't be willing to put yourself in a situation you might have to kill for it.
Could not agree more. That'll do for that one, guys. Well said. Colorado seeks to protect gun rights for medical marijuana users. So clearly here we have both medical and retail marijuana. That was 2012 when we legalized it. I voted for it. I think, let's collect the tax money, whatever. I think that it was like a horrible, terrible thing to happen to Colorado. I think that our petty crime has skyrocketed. Our homelessness has skyrocketed. All I do, I smell weed, like no matter where I go, constantly 100%, still would vote for it again. And this is actually kind of an interesting one. I think that this is going to be kind of a battleground that we see in the United States, because as more places legalize marijuana, it is in direct contradiction of federal guidelines on the 4473. It says, are you a user of marijuana or any other narcotic? If you answer yes, you cannot buy a firearm. So this isn't to change the legal definition. This is just to protect Colorado citizens from things like that inside of Colorado. I will say this is introduced by Republican State Senator Vicky Marble and Democratic House Representative Bree Buentello. Now, Bree, I know, is involved with some of my friends, and one of them said, what do you think of this? And I was like, yeah, it's all talk, man. I know you've had meetings with her, and she says that she supports gun rights and things like that. But until she actually puts her name on some paper and puts her neck on the line, I don't believe it, and I don't care about it. I'd say that this is putting her neck on the line. I'd say she's put it down. So I think that's pretty awesome. I don't care if you're a Democrat or Republican, as long as you support the Second Amendment. I'm down with it. Andy Montoya, thoughts on this whole thing?
Yeah, I think it's good. I've been kind of thinking about this specific ad or op, whatever we want to call it, for quite a while today, because I was just like, it's just kind of ironic that we actually have, majority of the lefties that hate guns are actually so for this bill. So, I mean, it's good. Like you said, we have 2 bipartisan people that introduced the bill. I think that's a good thing. It would be so nice if they could continue beyond this. But again, it's one of those things. I'll believe it when I see it.
Zane?
I think it's unnecessary. I think marijuana needs to be deregulated at the federal level.
Totally agree.
And then that makes all this unnecessary. And that I don't believe would take an act of Congress or the Senate. I think the Attorney General could deregulate that. Because it still is not going to provide them federal protection. All it's going to do is provide them state protection. So, good initiative, but it's, something needs to be done at the federal level.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely 100% right. But I am glad that we have politicians from both sides of the aisle that see this as an issue and are taking action. Like, honestly, like, I probably don't care as much about the bill as I care about this Democratic House representative who's willing to put her neck on the line for something that's firearms related.
I agree. I'll agree there for sure.
And she's brand new. She literally just got elected. So I'm kind of down. And Bree, good job. That's congrats. And now you've put some skin in the game, and I am impressed by that. Next story is going to be, let's just move down and do DNA testing company sharing data with the FBI. All right. So news was made. What is it? Garden State Killer or something? Golden State Killer was
Golden
found.
State Killer.
There's an open source site. Zane just put on his tinfoil hat. We're good to go. Basically, there's a site that's open source called GED Match. People could upload their their DNA profiles, whatever. Police were able to upload crime scene DNA, get a familial match, meaning that they found somebody in the family, and then that ended up matching one of the suspects that they had, and they were able to arrest them like many years later. Now, another company, Family Tree DNA, is allowing the FBI to send in requests. They don't have unfettered access to the database or anything, but they can put in requests. They can upload DNA data and get matches down. This is kind of terrifying to me. This is why I've never done any of these services. And I say that as Alexa listens to me in the next room, and when I go home, Google listens to everything that I say. So maybe I'm stupid. Well, probably I'm stupid, but Zane, you put the tinfoil hat on. I would like to hear, just so you don't overheat while you have that on, what your thoughts are.
My thoughts are pretty much what you said. I really want to do one of these things. I want to do 23andMe or Ancestry or whatever, because I find that stuff very fascinating. But this is the reason I don't. I worry about my privacy and I got nothing to hide. I'm not a criminal, but at the same time, that doesn't matter. The whole idea of, well, if you have nothing to hide, what's the problem, is total BS. So yeah, I want to do one of these things, but this right here keeps me from doing it because it's not the government's business about my DNA.
Yeah,
at all.
Couldn't agree more. Andy, what do you think, buddy?
Same but different. So first of all, I want to do one of those DNA things too, but I'm a little bit nervous of getting a phone call from somebody and be like, "Hey, Dad," But you kind of mentioned it already, Sean. Have you ever had your phone? You go up to Google something and it already has the things that you've been recently talking about that you haven't searched yet. So it's already there. A lot of people too, they're like, well, I don't want a concealed carry permit because I don't want the FBI and I don't want the ATF to have my stuff. Well, guess what? If you have a driver's license, if you've ever signed up for anything online, you're already on a list. They already have your information. They know how many guns you have. So
yeah,
I mean,
the list argument bothers me a lot. It's like, dude, you're on a bunch of lists.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. I mean, no, I don't want the FBI with all my crap either. It's none of their damn business. But the reality is they're getting it whether we want it or not.
Yeah, and like what you said, when it comes to, I mean, Facebook, dude, I've gone to like gun classes before and got home and have recommended friends of dudes that were in the class, and I got no friends in common with them, and I'm like, wait, how I even talked to this dude? Like, so yeah. Privacy is dead, unfortunately.
It really is. But I don't know. I don't want to get accused of a crime from 30 years ago, so I'm just not going to put my stuff in there.
Oh, we're not going to make it any easier for him, even though it's dead. But I'm still going to fight him tooth and nail over it.
I Immigration and Customs Enforcement detains 30 during immigration raid at Bear Creek Arsenal. Bear Creek Arsenal, famous for making really, really inexpensive stuff. I don't know what the whole story is here. I don't think anyone does at this point, but basically 27 people taken into custody by Customs Enforcement. It turns out that it was like some kind of ongoing investigation that dealt with identity theft. Bear Creek issued the following statement. I want to read it. Today, there were several employees, almost 3 dozen, who were detained by law enforcement. This is the result of an investigation conducted by Homeland Security into employment that was attained by either ID theft or fraudulent information. The company said that Homeland Security confirmed Bear Creek's Human Resource Department complied with all laws, rules, and regulations in their hiring practices, and that they want Lee County residents to know it's not a random operation by U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement in Lee County. It was a result of an ongoing investigation. So it looks like people were getting false IDs and everything and then getting jobs at Bear Creek, which kind of seems, I know a lot of people were quick to jump on them, but so far it seems like they cooperated. They did everything that they needed to do. They obeyed the law. Who knows? Andy Montoya, what do you make of all this?
It's no surprise to me. I mean, this is something that's been happening for years. I lived in Arizona back in 2012, and one of the biggest water parks in Arizona got shut down because 90% of their employees were illegal. So it doesn't surprise me, and I think there's tons of them out there that still do it, and it's just a matter of when it gets caught. Again, back when I lived in Phoenix, they had this big thing about rounding up illegal immigrants and sending them home. And a lot of them did leave. And the economy actually crashed a little bit there in Arizona. But you know what? I mean, illegal to me is illegal. It doesn't really matter. I mean, figure it out.
Figure it out. Zane.
You got to think they had at least an idea.
That's kind of what I think.
Like, I get it. Yep, he's got a legit ID and a social security number. This is the 8th, dude with the same name that's applied this week. But
it's weird that your name is John Smith.
Yeah, right. But whatever. I don't really care. Like,
I know. But I know people were like really wanting to just dump on Bear Creek. But it seems like at least they were working with customs and immigration. I mean,
they're good technically. I mean, dudes, chicks, whatever they were, had the proper stuff. It was just, falsified information. So Bear Creek plays the ignorant card. They may very well have actually been ignorant to it. Don't know. Doubt it.
Yeah,
but not that it doesn't even really matter, like, because they're making cheap stuff. You want to buy cheap. We buy cheap stuff from China all the time, and we know what their hiring practices are. So,
yeah, like patches.
I mean, how many times have you gone to a hotel or a motel, and the guy's name is John, and you're like, your name is not John.
Yeah, or like your last name is Montoya, but you speak perfect English.
Right, exactly.
Some things that don't make sense.
I agree.
All I know is their barrels are going to be a little bit more expensive going forward. I believe
they got legal bills to cover.
Exactly. Gun control groups are prepared to relax their laws rather than have the conservative majority Supreme Court of the United States of America add teeth to the Second Amendment. This was interesting. Comes to us from USA Today, and basically the gist of it is this: that some of the stuff. This is the travel. I believe that I was mistakenly talking about from earlier, but basically some of these gun control groups are asking New York to relax some of their laws or to get rid of some of their laws so that case doesn't go to the Supreme Court, because they're pretty sure that the Supreme Court would overturn that, which would be huge and far reaching across the entire United States. And so they're kind of asking New York to change those laws so that people can actually travel with it. Just because of the implications if the Supreme Court does accept the case and does overturn the lower court's findings. This is huge, man. Andy, what do you think?
You notice on Facebook, you get the group of people that just constantly calls these anti-gun people, they're idiots, they're stupid, they don't know what they're talking about.
Libtards.
Yeah, all that crazy noise that just drives me insane. And Sean, you said it in the other podcast. These guys and girls are thinking 2, 3, 4 steps ahead of us.
Oh yeah, they're way better.
it's smart. It's smart business what they're doing to be like, okay, let's relax a little bit so this doesn't go to the Supreme Court so we don't lose it all. So I mean, I almost want to say kudos to them, but I hate them.
Yeah, no, I totally get it. Zane?
It's kind of like sore loser syndrome. Like when you know you're wrong, like we've figured out we're wrong, and we know if we push this any further, like we're gonna get told we're wrong. So let's. It's like when what was it, Hawaii or California or something, like didn't fight a ruling not too long ago because they're like the district court ruled on it and they didn't press the issue, even though it didn't go in their favor because they knew it was going to set precedents across the nation. My thing is, like, I guess if you understand that, if you understand at this point, you obviously understand you're wrong. So I don't know. They're much smarter than most 2A folks give them credit, for. They're playing the long game. They're playing the long game because us pro-gun people, we got our way. We're going to go back in the shadows and, hey, we got our thing. Just like when Trump got elected, a bunch of 2A people were like, oh, well, our Lord and Savior's in office. Nothing bad will happen now. Mm-hmm. And that's not how it works, man.
Yeah. So I really hope that the Supreme Court takes this case and that New York doesn't change it. They would, because someone over 22 Cheapsters on the live chat said, and once the Supreme Court doesn't rule on the case, they'll ask New York to beef up the laws again. And I totally think that's pretty good.
Mm-hmm. They're playing the long game.
Oh, yeah, without question. And it just, man, we need to get our stuff together as advocates of the 2A as a whole. Just by honestly getting off our butts. That's what we need to do. We need to get off our butts. We need to show up and be pains to the politicians so they know that we mean business, whether it's writing letters, making phone calls, showing up at the Capitol, showing up for hearings and things like that. These are the things we need to do. I'm sorry, signing a petition on Facebook or signing something on change.org, like none of that matters. Like just stop doing it. You're wasting your time and you're making us all look like fools.
Write letters, make phone calls.
Exactly. Get off your butts, do stuff.
Hey, Sean, real quick, though, and I want to make this even a harder question for you. So here in New Mexico, we're in legislation now, and we're getting a bunch of anti-gun stuff, universal background checks, red flag laws, all this crap that we keep hearing about. And everybody did show up, and it was like 40 or 50 to 1 pro-gun people there, and still passed it through committee. So what's the answer then?
Yeah, I mean, we have to hold elected officials accountable, right? Like if we have to figure out ways to make them pay, whether it's recalls. We recalled the head of the Colorado Senate, John Morse, after the magazine laws that were pushed through in secret committees and changing times and places so people couldn't actually be there to talk. Recalled him and Angela, John Morse and Angela something. I don't even remember her name because I don't care about either one of them really. But they were recalled, and sometimes that's the stuff that we have to do, but we have to hold them accountable through the methods that we have. I mean, you guys got basically your politics in New Mexico changed with this last election, right?
Oh yeah. I mean, we've always been a blue state, but we lost the Republican governor, which doesn't mean a whole lot, as you guys know. I mean, that's the biggest argument that we hear here in New Mexico is, well, you had a Republican governor. How come y'all didn't do anything? Well, because the whole rest of the dang state is blue. That's why. But yeah, it's just progressively gotten worse, much like Washington and all those other states.
Stinks. Last one's just a real quick one. I just thought it was kind of interesting. It's an LA Times opinion hit piece that promotes retired Justice Stevens' rewording of the Second Amendment. I just wanted to read that rewording. So this is retired Supreme Court Justice John Paul Stevens basically said that he thinks we should revise the Second Amendment to a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state. The right of the people to keep and bear arms when serving in the militia shall not be infringed. And yeah, I am glad he is retired, and I do not like him. Zane, any thoughts here?
Yeah, I think that anyone who thinks this might sound like a good idea should go read a book. Well, go read a history book, but there's a specific book I'm trying to come up with the name of. I'll find it in a minute. But
I think I know the one you're talking about. I also am drawing a blank on the name.
Yeah, it's a Patriot's history to the United States by, I got it here. It doesn't matter who it's by. But if you look at history and if you read the Federalist Papers and you understand what was going on before the writing of the Second Amendment, before 1792, I think is when the Bill of Rights were ratified. If you understand all that, it's pretty clear and concise what the Second Amendment means, especially if you read the Federalist Papers and read newspaper articles at the time. So don't give a F about your opinion, retired Supreme Court Justice, and go away.
I could not agree more. And the book you're talking about, that's the one that basically compares different places where the same wording is used to talk about different things, and they're very clear, and it clearly shows what the founders wanted the Second Amendment to be, right?
Yeah, I think so. So there's two that I read. I'm getting confused. One of them is called Dynamic Freedoms, which is basically the Constitution, the Declaration of Independence, Constitution, Bill of Rights, and then excerpts from the Federalist Papers with explanations. And the other one is A Patriot's Guide to U.S. History. And I get them kind of confused, but they're both great reads. You should check them both out. So.
Love it. Andy, do you have thoughts on retired Justice Stupid Stevens?
Threeper up, baby.
Exactly. There you go.
I think what's going to happen is some guy like Sean Heron over here is going to create a militia registry so everybody can go and formally register their militia threeper groups and just go right around it.
There you go.
We should also remember that the Militia Act of 18 whatever says that all adult men 18 to like 54, I think, are a part of the militia. So even if that's the case, cool, bro, I'm in the militia. So does that mean I can have machine guns? Because there's that Miller case from like 36 or whatever. So.
Yep. All right, that'll do. Let's go full auto news, guys. Let's talk about crazy stuff. Zane, what's your story?
Oh man, I don't have the show notes up, but I remember what my story is.
I'll read the headline while you pull it up. Woman. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, no, Texas woman arrested for masturbating in public continues pleasuring herself in the back of the police car. There was no Florida man story this week, so I was like, well, this could have easily happened in Florida, so we'll go with this one. Yeah, so my main question here is, was it a strategic effort by law enforcement to handcuff her in the front and not the back based on what she was being arrested for? And that's really all I have on this one. So anyways, she was in public doing her thing, and someone asked her to stop. If she didn't, they went to arrest her and looked in the back of the cop car, and she wasn't done.
So ridiculous. The funny part is that it comes from a Florida website, and it says more news headlines: Florida man, Florida man, Florida man. All three of them.
Yeah. I was shocked to find out this didn't happen in Florida.
I know. I was shocked that you picked a Texas headline and then it went to a Florida website. I was so confused. But yeah, Andy, I don't know. I feel like this is a challenge to all of us now.
It's funny because when I read the thing, and that's the first thing I thought, well, why is this cop handcuffing her in the front? Unless he's, kind of intentionally doing it. But then
that was strategery.
My crazy mind starts bending and twisting. And I'm like, okay, well, she's a meth head. She's awfully skinny. I mean, let me see if I can picture how, if she was handcuffed from behind, if she could, complete this job. I don't know. What the heck is going on in this world?
I don't know either. Andy, what was your story?
Mine was almost another good guy story. Well, maybe not. Just kidding. In Chicago, ironically, of course, a woman was in police custody after shooting an 81-year-old man, critically wounding him Saturday morning. And it's funny, South Chicago neighborhood on the far south side. We want to make sure it's not just south; it's far south.
Gotcha.
The two of them were arguing, got into a physical struggle at 1:55 a.m. on Phillips Avenue, whatever. According to the police, during the fight, woman fired the gun, shot him in the face. 81-year-old was taken to the hospital, critical condition. The woman, who was believed to have known the man she shot, was taken into custody but released without charges. So, again, it's one of those questions like, what the hell was an 81-year-old man doing awake at 1:55 in the morning?
Well, that's probably when he gets up because he goes to dinner at 1 in the afternoon.
At Luby's with his AARP card.
That's right.
Exactly. Oh man, it was interesting that she was released without charges.
Yeah, I wish there was more details to the story, obviously, but I mean, it's Chicago, so
Exactly. All right, man. That'll do it for the crazy stories, guys. Let's start to wrap this thing up. Before we go, though, I have to know what you guys have been up to and where people can find you. Zane, start off.
I've been writing reviews. I just wrote a review on a Zero Industries trigger, and that was published on the Firearms Insider. Finishing up one right now on the COGWorks or CAGWorks, not sure how to say it, extended slide release for the Glock, which has the internet really, really mad, which makes me happy that I get to take a side. Right. I have to pick a side now, so it makes me happy. Spoiler alert, kind of like it. As for the training side, doing concealed weapons classes, doing armed security, requals, all that stuff, man, staying busy. You can find me at Contextual Defense and Consulting. You can find all my review stuff at Firearms Insider on all the things right here on the Firearms Radio Network.
Oh yeah. Andy, what's been going on? Where can people find you guys?
Well, a lot's been going on with me. We're always busy. This weekend, actually, so in New Mexico, our concealed carry class is 15 hours, so it's 2 days. At the same time, us being kind of stupid, we double booked Silver Mountain out here doing an NRA instructor course and a concealed carry course on the same weekend. So day one, I'll be helping Silver Mountain, and day two, I'll be helping Practical Defense. So that's fun. You can find us on the After Action Project on the Firearms Radio Network. And probably pretty soon you're going to see Zane on there, because after we're done, I'm going to ask him to come on the show.
There you go. Very nice. Love it. Both these shows, go listen to these shows that these guys are on. Great stuff. And again, here, Firearms Radio Network, firearmsradio.tv. Guys, thank you so much for being here. Listeners, video watchers out there, we really appreciate you guys consuming the content. If you like the show, leave us a review on iTunes or Facebook or whatever it happens to be. And if you don't like the show, email me directly, Sean@firearmsradio.tv. I want to make it better. I want to make things great. I want to make FRN great again. And we can't do that without your help, letting us know what we get right and what we get wrong. So go check it out. But as always, Kenny Ortega, super producer, he produces this show. And this show is a production of the Firearms Radio Network. I'll catch all you next week.